Welcome to today's discussion on options in frames. Till this particular session, we have been looking into different HTML tags that are available to create web pages as well as the role of frames in the creation of web pages. Today what we will do is we will be studying various possibilities within the frames. As you have already seen in various tags of HTML, there will be different attributes which you can use. At the same time, there is no mandate that you have to use each and every tag. You can use only those tags which are useful, and within the tags only those options which you think are to be used. So in the frames also there are several options, and it will be good if you know all the options, because you can always use that option which will be useful to you in the design of web pages. So today's objective is to study about various options available in the frames. You can use checkbox for the selection of optional items. A site visitor can select or clear the checkbox according to his or her choices. They can also select multiple items. For example, if you look at the figure, a site visitor who is a graduate may check the boxes marked with 10, 12 and graduate. And then something similar to checkbox but not exactly is the group box. You can use a group box to assemble multiple related controls in a separate area from the rest of the form. So the personal details are grouped in a group box. It contains information regarding qualifications, category, date of birth and other things. Now you are familiar with the forms, but how to create the forms and how to add various items into them. For that, there are some things which will be very useful to you. So first let us see once again how to create a form. For that, you select the design view from the bottom of the document window. Select the position in the page where you want to add the form by clicking on that particular place. So don't get panicked if you find the form somewhere else, at a position where you don't intend. Simply undo that particular action and again place your cursor wherever you want that form to get viewed or inserted, and then you use the enter button to embed the form at that particular place. Go to toolbox at the right side of the screen and click on the HTML drop down list. In HTML drop down list, click on the plus sign of form controls. Double click on the form after you click on the plus sign of form controls. Basically what will happen is the plus sign stands for addition, okay, and you will get many controls and you select the form on it. So when you click on the form, when you double click on the form, then the action will start. That is when the form gets created. How to add a text box to form? See, form is something once you create, there are several elements that can be embedded on the form. So a form cannot be blank. So you need to add some things in it. Like sometimes you need to have a form without checkboxes. Sometimes you need to have the form without radio buttons. Sometimes you need to have the form without any menus options or pull down options. So basically the suggestion which I give to you is that first of all you draw the form on a piece of paper and also you place the elements roughly on that sheet. So you will have an idea about the elements that are to be part of the form. It will enable you to sequence the operations or sequence the code in HTML or other appropriate tool to create the form with all the elements without many errors. In case you are able to create the form with all the elements without any error at the first attempt, then I have to say that you can appreciate yourself for the systematic approach which you have taken. That is by putting things on a piece of paper and then doing the things on the computer. In case you don't follow this approach, what will happen is that You will definitely insert a form, you will definitely put the elements, but at the same time the look may not be the same as you wished. Maybe the position of elements are not okay, or the position of the form is not okay. Maybe you forgot some elements, maybe you think that some elements are to be included for the betterment. So again you will do it, and maybe you will end up doing a few number of times before you really get a form of your own liking or choice. To avoid this delay or wastage of time, it is always suggested that you design the form first of all on a piece of paper with a pen or a pencil with all elements included in it. Then you will be able to do it on the computer in a couple of attempts or even in the first attempt. It will save you a lot of time, it will increase your productivity, you will be able to design wonderful web pages. So let me say that now we want to add a text box to the form. For that you select the design view from the bottom of the document window, then select the position in the form or on the page where you want to add the text box by clicking on that particular position. Go to the toolbox at the right side of the screen, click on the HTML drop down list. In HTML drop down list, click on the plus sign of form controls and then double click on the input, that is the text. Now you have to set the properties for the text box. Double click on the text box or right click on the text box, then select the form field properties. Basically in the text box, that particular field will have many properties or options to set the properties. So you set the appropriate properties. The text box properties dialog box gets invoked. Type a unique name in the name box field to identify the text box. You can type the text that you want to show to your site visitor in a text box. Type the text in the initial value box. You can set the character length in the text box by using width in characters box option. Type a number in that field that you expect to be the maximum possible length for that field. For example, for name text box, you may use 50 as the length of the text field. So it will allow you to enter 50 characters to the maximum. If you want to make a text box as a password field, then you have to select the option button of your choice in the password field. Now just guess why you have to really select the password field. What are the advantages of selecting it as a password field? The advantage is that anything that is entered in the text box will not be visible. Okay, there will be a list of asterisks or stars, so the real text is hidden. Hence that can be mentioned as the password field in case you want it to be a password. Adding a text area to the form, this is one of the options. So for that, select the design view from the bottom of the document window, select the position in the form or on the page where you want the checkbox by clicking on that particular position. Go to toolbox at the right side of the screen, click on the HTML drop down list. In HTML drop down list, click on the plus sign of form controls, then double click on the text area. So again with the text area also we have to set the properties. For that, what we have to do is that we have to double click on the text area or right click on the text area. The text area box properties dialog box gets invoked. Type a unique name in the name box field to identify the text area. So you have to know that the particular name that is given is to be unique. Okay, only then it will be able to identify the text area. You can type the text that you want to show to your site visitor in a text box by typing that text in the initial value box. So here there are a few things that you have to remember. One is you have to give the name, then you also want to set the initial value. For example, it is not very uncommon that when a text area is displayed, you will find that not selected or none or any, something like that as the initial value box. But however, if the user wants, he can definitely select any of the remaining options, or in case he thinks that the option that is already set as initial value is the best, then they will not do anything further and they will leave it like that. You can also set the character length in the text box by using width in characters box option. Please note that size of text area can be larger than the text box. You can also set the maximum numbers of lines for accepting the text by using number of lines box. Now the another option that is possible is to add a checkbox to a form. Until now we have seen how to include a text box to a form, how to include a text area to the form, and now we will be seeing how to add a checkbox to a form. Before creating a checkbox, you should first decide the numbers of checkboxes and the label for each checkbox. In addition, you should also define the number of checkboxes that a user may check. What is very important is that whenever I am saying text box, you need to think where the text box is needed. Whenever I say text area, you need to think where the text area is needed. Now I am saying checkbox, you need to think where a checkbox is needed. For example, let me say that I know that there are number of hobbies a person can have, but maybe some people will have a few of them, some people will have many of them, and some people may have everything of them, and some people may not have any of them. So what I will be doing is I will be listing a few hobbies and I will tell the person to check all those or select all those which are his hobbies, and I will also put a none of the above checkbox there. So this is one place, or this is the one application of checkboxes that a person can select multiple items. So there is a question for which answers are not just one, but there may be more than one. Under such circumstances, we use checkboxes. So this is how you first create a checkbox, and of course you have to first, before creating the checkbox, you have to first decide the number of checkboxes and the label for each checkbox, because in the case of hobbies example, for each checkbox you will have some name. For example, listening music may be the label for a checkbox. Driving a bike may be another hobby which may be the label for another checkbox. So watching films may be another hobby which can be the label for another checkbox. So you have to decide the labels, you have to decide the number of checkboxes that are possible. Then select the design view from the bottom of the document window. Select the position in the form or on the page where you want to add the checkbox by clicking on that particular position. Go to Toolbox at the right side of the screen and click on the HTML drop-down list. In HTML drop-down list, click on the plus sign for form controls and then double click on the input, that is the checkbox. Now we have to set the properties of the checkbox. So for that you have to double click on the checkbox or right click on the checkbox and then select the form field properties. Then select the checkbox properties dialog box gets invoked. Now type a unique name in the name box field to identify the area. You can set the values associated with the checkbox in the value box. This value indicates the selection or cancellation of the checkbox. You can click on checked if you want to show the default selected checkbox to the site visitors. This is how you can set the properties of a checkbox. Now let us see how to add a drop down box or a menu to a form. Basically whatever elements we are discussing are very common to be appear in a form. Drop down boxes can be used to accept a choice of the user. Although you can create drop down boxes for multiple selection, but in general they are used for single selection. Drop down boxes are very useful tool for the design of drop down menus. Now just think, what are the advantages of drop down menus? Why drop down menus are needed, when they are needed, Can you think of an example? Let me say that it is not uncommon whenever you fill a form, you will be asked to select the country, or you will be selected to, you will be asked to select a state. So for example, if you are selecting a state within India, the number of states in India are fixed. Okay. So rather than allowing you to enter something which may not be visible due to some spelling error or something, it will be good that we provide you all the names of the states and you select one of them. So wherever limited options are possible and wherever limited accurate fixed options are possible, drop down boxes will be very useful in limiting the errors. So for that, what you have to do is that you have to select the design view from the bottom of the document window. Then select the position in the form or on the page where you want to add the checkbox by clicking on that particular position. Go to toolbox at the right side of the screen and click on the HTML drop down list. In HTML drop down list, click on the plus sign of form controls. Then double click on the drop down box. Then, as we have done already in the case of checkbox, text area and text box, we should also set the properties for the choices in a drop down box. Double click on the text area or right click on the drop down box and then select the form field properties. Then select the drop down properties dialog box which gets invoked. Type a unique name in the name box field to identify the text area. If you want to show the default selected option in the drop down box, then under the initial state option, click on the checker and then you click on the OK. This is how you will be setting the properties for the choices in a drop down box. Then add a radio or an option button to a form. See, this is again different. Okay, we have seen the text box, we have seen the text area, we have seen the checkbox, we have also seen the drop down box. Now another element which we will be looking at is adding a radio button to the form. Basically all of us are using all these things, but we want to know how we can implement them rather than being user of some other forms. In the case of radio buttons, what we can really think of is that the list of options where only one option is correct. You cannot select more than one option. Under such circumstances, you can have a group of radio buttons and you can select one of them. In case you select another, then the earlier one becomes null and void. So unlike other form fields, radio buttons usually appear in groups and only one button in the group can be selected at a time. Then you select the design view from the bottom of the document window. Select the position in the form or on the page where you want to add the radio button by clicking on that particular position. Then go to toolbox at the right side of the screen and click on the HTML drop down list. In HTML drop down list, click on the plus sign of form controls and then double click on the drop down box. On the insert menu, select form and click on the input, that is the radio button. Insert forms and then input. So it will be like you select the insert and then you select the forms input, which is nothing but the radio button. Select the properties of the option button. Whenever I am saying option button, I am referring to the radio button. So double click on the radio button or right click on the radio button and then select the form field properties, and the option button properties dialog box gets invoked. Type a unique name in the group name box field to identify the group to which these option buttons belong. You can set the values associated with the option box in the value box. If you want to show the default selected option in the option button, then click on the initial state and then click on the selected. It is also possible that you design all these things using some other tools but not using the raw HTML. It all depends on your interest. But initially, in case you do through HTML, you will get a better idea about the tools when you are using them, because you will be knowing the implementation at the back and you will know the limitations of the tool. These things you will be able to grasp in case you do the coding by yourself in the HTML at initial stages. Now let us see about the personal web page development. Before going through the developmental phase of the personal website or a web page, let's discuss about the term personal web page. Generally, we have a question in our mind as to what are personal web pages and what is the basic difference between a simple web page and a personal web page. In the section, what we'll be doing is that let us discuss those things, including how we can develop our own personal web pages. So we should be in a position to create our own personal web pages, and nowadays you will find personal web pages for many personalities, and you should also have one for your own. Personal web pages are basically created by an individual and contain personal contents. The contents of personal web pages can be about that person or about something related to their achievements or interest. The personal web page can be on the entire personal website or can be a page or pages of a larger website. For example, faculty pages on the IGNOU website. Okay, all these are personal web pages. The basic purpose behind developing the personal web pages is providing information about oneself. The personal web pages may contain images, hyperlinks, resumes, blogs, and other information about the person. Many personal web pages contain information about the hobbies, achievements, information about family and friends of the web page creator. So it's up to you and it's your taste what you would like to have in the web page, and you should be in a position to design your own personal web page. Many people maintain their personal web pages because they think this is the best way to express their views or opinions. So what we can basically do is that we can develop a personal website with the help of Microsoft Expression Web. And if you look at the figure, it shows a sample personal home page. For creating these types of personal web pages, you can select a template from the list of templates. If you want to create a website of your own, then you have to follow all the procedure that were discussed earlier in this discussion as well as in the earlier discussions. It is always important that whenever you want to create a personal web page, again use the same model of doing the things on a piece of paper and a pen and then trying to implement them. And there is no harm in going through various lectures as well as resources to find the best process and best tools to create that web page, because it has to look rich when somebody is going to have to look at it. So it will be really upgrading your career and other things in case you are able to include the right things in your personal web page. Now if you look at the figure, it shows you the code window of the personal web page. You have to work on your design window, leaving code window untouched. Also, as you will change your design in the design window, it will automatically change the code in the code window. Now the question is how to use the personal web page template. For that, you select the file menu and then select the new option. The new task pane gets invoked. In the new task pane, click on the website tab. Under website tab, click on the templates, and then a list of templates will be displayed as are already available and visible on the figure. Now select any one option from the personal and click on OK button. After selecting a personal template, you just have to fill information about you in the particular areas. Please note that this template automatically creates various tabs in your personal web page, which include home, about, resume, photo gallery, contact and links. You need to replace the sample information on all these pages to create your own web pages. You can upload your images, create your resume and make a photo gallery on these pages. And also the about section may be used to store information related to your profession and personal achievements. This section gives a brief of your achievements and goals related to the academics and professional life to the visitors. You can also see that the about page of a website has introduced the person. For example, if you look at my website, you can say that I have introduced myself as a senior software engineer and how I have achieved this level. Basically, this is only for an example, and I want to tell you that I am not a senior software engineer, so don't mistake with the examples. Okay, whatever I am really sharing with you is for ease of convenience, something which really collates with your course material. If you want to create your own personal website, then you can enter all the information related to you in the about web page. The contact page is used to store contact information of the author on this website. You can enter your home address as well as your office address. You can put your mobile number or landline number for future reference. As email is an important way of communication in the present time, I have included my email address in the contact. A resume is a document that contains the summary of relevant information about you such that you are able to introduce yourself in a job situation. The resume or CV is the first item that an employer seeks from the applicant and is used to screen them. You can also create your resume with the help of this particular web template. In this web template, you just need to enter text at appropriate places. After entering relevant information, you may save your web page and view it in a browser. How can you really do all these things? Okay, of course, we have already discussed most of these things during our earlier discussions. For example, the photo gallery is a collection of personal images and pictures. These galleries are used to store the digital images in one place. So you can use them from anywhere in the world at any time by using the internet. You can create albums according to the date of the event and place the pictures in respective albums. The process of adding an image in your web page and converting it into a thumbnail has already been discussed earlier. If you have any confusion about how to create photo galleries, then you can browse through my earlier discussions, or you can browse through the course content or the study material that is available. So if you look at the figure, you will see that it is a very good example of use of the hyperlinks. You can use this page to provide some good links to other websites. For example, if you have written a paper and it is available on a website, then you can create a hyperlink to that page. The process of creating hyperlinks was already discussed in the earlier discussion. Thus, we expect that you will be able to create the necessary linkages. So you can create your own personal website using a template very easily, and I am hoping that you will be trying to do that. So basically, the HTML inline frames element represents a nested browsing context embedding another HTML page into the current one. Each embedded browsing context has its own session history and document. The browsing context that embeds the others is called the parent browsing context. The topmost browsing context, the one with no parent, is usually the browser window represented by the window object. So if you look at the code here, you can see that iframe was created, which is equivalent to frame in the HTML5, iframe ID, and it is equal to initial frame example. Then we have given a type for it inline frame example. Its width is set to 300 and its height is set to 200, and we have also given a source what will be visible in that frame. This is the code for it. So you have an opening iframe tag, and then you have a closing iframe tag. In the opening iframe tag you have several options. In that some options are ID, title, width and height, which were used including the source, which is denoted by src. So like this we can create the iframes, we can have sources, we can mention the height, width and other things. So today I have introduced you to the frame in the last moment, but earlier discussions we have already gone through them to some extent. So you can also use some additional resources on the web and try to create a wonderful website using the frames. I thank you for attending the discussion, and in case you have any doubts, please mail to me. Thanks a lot.